If a deputy pulls you over for something as small as a sticker on your car, and minutes later you're in handcuffs, your car is being searched, and your life is flipped upside down, you need to understand something. That stop was never about the sticker. And what happened next? It didn't just end on the side of the road. It turned into a lawsuit worth $5.5 million. But here's the part that should make you pay attention. Everything that led to that lawsuit started with small decisions, small words, small moments that most people don't even notice. And if you don't understand those moments, you could end up in the exact same situation. Let's drop you right into it. Late afternoon, clear road. A driver is heading home. Nothing unusual, no speeding, no reckless driving, just a normal day. Then suddenly, lights, red and blue, flashing hard in the rearview mirror. That instant feeling hits, confusion, stress. What did I do? The driver checks everything. Speed? Fine. Seatbelt? On. Signals? Used. Nothing stands out. Still, they pull over, because that's what you do. Engine idling, hands on the wheel, trying to stay calm. The deputy walks up, slow, measured, one hand resting near their belt, the other holding a flashlight, even in daylight, because control starts with presence. They reach the window, tap, the driver rolls it down, and right here, everything still feels normal. Cop. License and registration. The driver hands it over. No hesitation, no attitude. Everything by the book. Then comes the explanation. Cop. I pulled you over because of that sticker on your windshield. Pause. The driver blinks. Sticker? What sticker? A small one. Barely noticeable. Something most people wouldn't think twice about. Something that never caused a problem before. And yet, here they are. On the side of the road, being stopped. Now at this point, most people relax a little because it feels minor. Feels harmless. Feels like it'll be quick. Maybe even just a warning. And that's where the first mistake usually happens. Because when something feels small, you let your guard down. You start talking more. You become casual. You think, this is nothing. But here's what you need to understand. Small stops can turn into big problems. Fast. The deputy looks at the driver again. Longer this time. Scanning, observing. Because the stop may have started with a sticker, but now it's about everything. Cop. Where are you coming from? Simple question. Feels normal, feels harmless. Driver. Just coming from a friend's place. And just like that, the conversation begins. Information starts flowing, details start building, and this is where things slowly start to shift. The deputy nods, but their eyes stay focused, looking for something, anything. Cop. Where's your friend live? Now the driver hesitates, not because they're hiding anything, but because they didn't expect a follow-up. Now they're thinking, trying to answer clearly, but that slight pause, that moment of hesitation, it gets noticed, always. Because in these moments, everything gets analyzed. Tone, timing, body language, even silence. Driver. Just across town. Not specific, not detailed, and now it feels off, even if it's not. And that's how quickly things change, not because of guilt, but because of perception. Let's pause right here, because this moment, this exact moment, is where the direction of the entire stop can change. The driver isn't doing anything wrong. They're just answering questions, trying to be cooperative, trying to be normal. But they don't realize every answer adds something. Every detail creates a path. And once that path starts forming, it can lead somewhere you never intended. Let's go back. The deputy leans slightly closer, voice calm, but sharper now. Cop. Mind if I ask what you were doing there? Now this question, this is where people really start opening up, because it feels like conversation, feels like curiosity. Driver. Just hanging out, watching a game. Sounds harmless, sounds normal, but again, more details, more story, more pieces, and now the deputy has something to work with. Cop. Have you had anything to drink? And here it is. The shift. The real reason starts to show, because that question doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from suspicion, or curiosity, or simply opportunity. And now the driver is in a critical moment. This is where everything can either stay small or start getting bigger. Driver: no, nothing. Quick answer, but now the deputy is watching closer, listening harder, looking for inconsistencies. Because once that door opens, they're going to keep pushing. Cop: you seem a little nervous. Now the pressure increases, because this is psychological. Nobody wants to seem nervous, so what do people do? They start explaining. Driver: I just got pulled over. Anyone would be nervous. That sounds reasonable, but again, more talking, more engagement, more opportunity for things to go wrong. And here's the truth. The more you talk, the more chances you give for something to be misunderstood, twisted, or used. Now the deputy steps back slightly, looks at the car, then back at the driver. Cop: step out of the vehicle. And just like that, what started as a sticker stop is no longer about a sticker. The driver's heart rate jumps. This feels serious now, unexpected, uncomfortable, but they comply. They step out, hands visible, trying to stay calm, trying not to make things worse. And this is where things reach a turning point, because once you're out of the car, the dynamic changes completely. You're more exposed, more vulnerable, more under control. The deputy walks around the vehicle slowly, looking inside, not touching anything yet, just observing. Then they stop, turn back. Cop: do you have anything illegal in the car? Now this question, this is where people panic, because it's direct, it's heavy, it feels like an accusation, and most people react emotionally. Driver: no, of course not. Strong response, defensive tone. Even if it's true, it feels reactive. And that reaction, it gets noticed. Because now the deputy is thinking, why so defensive? Why that tone? Why that reaction? And suddenly, suspicion grows, even if there was none to begin with. This is how escalation happens, not in one big moment, but in small steps, small reactions, small words. Now the deputy asks again, slightly different. Cop: mind if I take a look inside your vehicle? And this is the moment that changes everything. Because consent is powerful. And most people don't realize what they're giving when they say yes. The driver hesitates. They feel pressure. They want to cooperate. They want this to end. So they say, yeah, sure. And just like that, the door is open, legally, fully. The deputy doesn't need anything else now. They start searching. Glove compartment, back seat, under seats, everywhere. And the driver stands there, watching, feeling that sinking feeling, because now they've lost control. And here's the part that hits hard. Even if there's nothing illegal, the situation is already escalated. Time is longer, tension is higher, and anything found, even something small, can now become an issue. Now imagine. Something is misunderstood. Something is misidentified. Something is taken out of context. And suddenly, the driver is in handcuffs on the side of the road for a stop that started with a sticker. This is not exaggeration. This is how fast things can spiral. And this case, it didn't end there. Because what happened next, what the deputy did, how far things went. That's what turned this into a $5.5 million lawsuit. But to understand that, you need to see exactly where the line was crossed, where things went from questionable to unlawful. And that's where part 2 comes in. Because what happened after the search, after the detention, after the decisions that were made in those next few minutes, that's where everything changed. That's where the real story begins. And if you think what you've heard so far is intense, what comes next is where it gets serious. You're standing on the side of the road, hands tense, heart pounding, watching a deputy go through your car, piece by piece, like they're looking for something they're determined to find. And in your mind, one thought keeps repeating, how did this even get here? A sticker. That's where it started. A small, almost invisible sticker. And now, you're outside your own vehicle, being treated like a suspect. This is the moment most people realize something is wrong. Not just uncomfortable, not just stressful, wrong. But here's the problem. By the time you feel that, you're already deep in it. Let's go back into that exact second. The deputy is still searching. Glove box open, papers being moved around, seats pushed forward. You're standing there, silent, trying to stay calm, but your body is giving you away. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, eyes locked on every move they make, and the deputy notices all of it, because at this stage, everything is being observed, not just your words, your reactions, your posture, your silence. Now suddenly, the deputy pauses. They found something. Not illegal, not dangerous, just something, an object, ambiguous. Could be nothing, could be something, and that's where interpretation comes in. Cop. What's this? They hold it up, and now the spotlight is back on you. This is another critical moment. Because your instinct is to explain, to clarify, to fix the misunderstanding. Driver. Oh, that's just stop. That reaction right there, that's what gets people into deeper trouble. Because now you're talking again. Now you're giving statements. Now you're trying to control a situation that's already out of your hands. And anything you say now can be used to shape the narrative, even if you're completely innocent. Instead, imagine this. Same moment, same object, same question. Cop. What's this? You stay calm. You don't rush. You don't try to explain. You say, I'm not answering any questions. Now the energy shifts again, because you didn't engage. You didn't give them anything to build on, and that matters more than you think. But in this case, the driver didn't do that. They spoke. They tried to explain, and in doing that, they gave the deputy something to work with, something to interpret, something to twist. And that's when things took a serious turn. Cop, turn around. The words hit instantly, heavy, final. No room for confusion. Driver, wait, what? Why? But it's already happening. Hands are grabbed, positioned behind the back, cold metal cuffs snap shut. Right there, on the side of the road, in public, for a stop that started with a sticker. Now everything feels unreal. People are driving past, some slowing down, some staring, and you're standing there, restrained, trying to process what just happened. Because in your mind, this doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be happening. But it is. And this is where everything changes permanently. Because once you're in handcuffs, the situation is no longer a conversation, it's custody. And what happens next becomes part of a record, a report, a case. The deputy walks you to the patrol car, opens the back door. You sit down. Door shuts. That sound? It hits different. Because now, you're not just detained. You're contained, and the control is no longer yours. Now let's pause here, because this moment is critical. This is where most people break. Emotionally, mentally, they start talking, fast, desperate, trying to fix everything. I didn't do anything. You're making a mistake. Listen to me. But none of that helps. In fact, it often makes things worse, because now everything you say is being recorded, not just by body cams, but mentally, every word, every tone, every reaction. So what should have happened here? Silence, calm, control, but that's not what happened. The driver kept talking, kept explaining, kept trying to prove innocence, in a moment where that strategy doesn't work. Now we move forward. Time passes, more officers arrive, because once someone is in custody, backup often follows. Now there are multiple perspectives, multiple interpretations, multiple reports being formed, and consistency becomes everything. But here's the problem. When you talk too much, consistency becomes harder. Small differences, small details, small changes in wording, they get noticed. And those small things, they can be used to question credibility, even if you're telling the truth. Now the deputy starts writing notes, observations, statements, and everything that happened is being shaped into a narrative, a version of events. And if your words are scattered, emotional, inconsistent, that narrative doesn't favor you. Now here's where the line gets crossed, because in this case, the search, the detention, the arrest, didn't hold up. There wasn't enough. Not legally, not properly, but in that moment, none of that mattered, because the action already happened. The damage was already done. Time passes, the driver is processed, released later. But the impact doesn't go away, because now there's a record, now there's stress, now there's consequences, work, family, reputation. Everything gets touched, all from a stop that should have ended in minutes. This is where the story shifts, because now it's no longer about the roadside. It's about what happens after. Legal action, because when rights are violated, there are consequences. And in this case, those consequences were massive. A lawsuit. $5.5 million, think about that. From a sticker to millions. But here's what matters most. Why? Why did it reach that level? Because of how the situation was handled. Because of escalation. Because of decisions made under pressure. Because boundaries weren't respected. And because small moments were mishandled. Let's bring this back to you. Because this isn't just a story. This is a lesson. Every step of this situation could have gone differently. At multiple points, the outcome could have changed. Let's rewind. The stop begins. Sticker violation. Simple. At that moment, it could have stayed simple. But conversation opened the door. More talking, more details, more opportunity. Then came consent. Search allowed. That changed everything. Then came explanation. More words, more interpretation. Then came escalation. Handcuffs, custody. And from there, everything snowballed. Now imagine the alternative. Short answers, controlled responses, no unnecessary details, no consent to search, calm behavior, silence when needed. That path looks very different, shorter, safer, cleaner. And that's the difference. Not luck, not chance, control, understanding, awareness. Because in these situations, you don't rise to the moment. You fall to your preparation. If you don't know what to do, you react. If you react, you risk making mistakes. And those mistakes can cost you. Big. Let me bring you back to that image one more time. You're on the side of the road, lights flashing, officer at your window. It feels small, feels routine, feels like nothing. But now you know. That's exactly when it matters most. Because small stops don't always stay small. And the difference between walking away and everything going wrong often comes down to what you say, what you allow, and what you understand. This story didn't become a $5.5 million lawsuit by accident. It became that because something went wrong. And when something goes wrong at that level, it's serious. So next time you see those lights in your mirror, next time you feel that pressure building, next time you're asked questions that feel harmless, remember this: you are always one decision away from changing everything. Stay calm, stay controlled, and most importantly, don't give away your power when it matters most. Before you click away, I want you to stop for a second and really think about everything you just saw. Not as a story, not as something that happened to someone else, but as something that could happen to you any day, any road, any moment. Because that's the part most people ignore. They watch, they feel shocked, maybe even a little scared, and then they move on, thinking, that would never happen to me. But the truth? Every single situation you saw in this video started the same way yours would. A normal drive, a normal stop, a normal question. Nothing looked dangerous at the beginning. Nothing felt serious. And that's exactly why it's so easy to get caught off guard, because real-life situations don't announce themselves. They don't come with warnings. They don't tell you, hey, this is the moment where everything could go wrong. They feel ordinary until they're not. That's why this matters. That's why you need to remember this. Because when that moment comes, you won't have time to think deeply. You won't pause and analyze every move. You'll react. And your reaction will come from what you already know, or what you don't know. And that difference, it can change everything. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's this: control your words. Before your words control your situation. Because talking feels natural. Explaining feels right. Trying to clear things up feels like the smart move. But in high-pressure moments, those instincts can work against you. Silence feels uncomfortable, but silence protects you. Short answers feel awkward, but short answers keep you safe. Staying calm feels difficult, but staying calm keeps things from escalating. And the people who understand that, they walk away from situations that could have gone very differently. Now listen, this channel isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about showing you the moments that most people overlook, the mistakes that happen in seconds, and the decisions that have long-term consequences. Because nobody teaches this. Nobody sits you down and says, "Hey, when this happens, here's what you should actually do." You're just expected to figure it out, in real time, under pressure. And that's where people get into trouble. So if you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. Because you're paying attention. You're learning. You're thinking about how to handle these situations before they happen. And that's powerful. But don't stop here. Because one video isn't enough. One lesson isn't enough. These situations have layers, different angles, different scenarios, and the more you understand, the better prepared you are. That's why this channel exists. To break down real moments, real mistakes, real consequences, so you don't have to learn the hard way. So here's what I want you to do right now. If this video made you think, if it made you realize something you didn't know before, if it made you feel even a little more prepared, hit that like button, not just to support the video, but to push this information out to more people, because there are thousands of drivers out there right now who have no idea how quickly things can escalate, who don't know what to say or what not to say. And one simple piece of knowledge could change everything for them. Then make sure you subscribe, because what you saw today is just the beginning. There are more scenarios, more situations, more hidden traps that most people never see coming. And once you understand them, you move differently, you think differently, you react differently, you don't panic, you don't over-explain, you don't lose control, you stay composed, you stay aware, you stay protected, and that's the goal. Not to win against anyone, not to prove anything, but to get through every situation as cleanly, as safely, and as smartly as possible. Also, go down to the comments for a second. I want to hear from you. What part of this video surprised you the most? What's something you didn't know before? Or maybe, have you ever experienced a situation like this? Because real experiences, real stories, they help everyone learn. They show patterns. They reveal things that most people miss. And when you share that, you're not just commenting, you're helping someone else avoid the same mistake. Now, one last thing before you go, and this might be the most important part of all. Everything you learned today only works if you remember it. In the moment, under pressure, when your heart is racing, when your mind is spinning, when everything feels fast and uncertain, that's when this knowledge matters. So don't just watch this and forget it. Think about it. Replay it in your mind. Visualize the situation. Picture yourself there, because the more familiar it feels now, the more controlled you'll be when it's real, and that's how you protect yourself. Not by guessing in the moment, but by being ready before it happens. So stay aware, stay calm, stay in control, and I'll see you in the next video.